I will be showing you how the fluids in your brain work. And this is for everyone. You don't have to be a cranial worker or anything like that. I will be showing it hopefully in a way that everyone can understand. And what I will be showing is Cushing's cerebrospinal fluid model. The more later, 100 years later, the glymphatic model, and also my model, the Cranial Sea model that I documented in 2012 and made videos of and made paintings. And now modern science as of 2025 and 2026 is saying that I'm correct. So that is good. There is a menu, so you can go to any part of this video you want. There will be a meditation at the end, and you can go directly to that if you wish. And in that, I will teach holographic breathing, which my model is based upon, and work with the cranial sea in that and how it flows through all of the brain cells, through the whole brain and spine and off down through the nerves, and is deeply healing. So that is all there. You can listen to whichever bit you wish, and there is the meditation at the end. Now, also, it is exactly 100 years since Cushing invented or had his theory of the cerebrospinal fluid model. And for me, 100 years, that's exact cycles of Chiron. Whoever's interested in Chiron, it has a 50-year cycle. Chiron is like the wounded healer. It has a lot to do with healing and showing up that is not correct or aligned. And so it's a 50-year cycle, so it's exactly on the dot of Cushing's cerebrospinal fluid model, which we will be looking at first of all. And forgot what I was going to say. Yeah, it's a 50-year cycle. And I'm going to show you pictures. Let's just look at that. This model, to this day, for the last 100 years and still now, is taught in all of the medical schools, universities, everywhere. This is what's taught, and we're going to look at that. And I'll let you decide for yourself. And we're going to go to my website, and there's loads of articles on the different parts. And we're going to go to one which is just pictures. Okay, we're on my website. This is this here. See, Cranial Sea here. You've got all of these articles, and this last one is just the pictures. So clear that. Go on, go back. Go back. That's it. So this first one is kind of my theory that it's all one fluid. In Cushing's model, this is cerebrospinal fluid, and in the brain, this is a ventricle, and within the cells of the brain, this is interstitial fluid. But as you can see, they are all the same fluid. They're 99% water, they're 1% oxygen, glucose, and salt. It's basically the same fluid, and I keep it as the same fluid. We'll get to Cushing's theory at the minute. These are just pictures I made. These are the ventricles, the lateral ventricle, the third ventricle, fourth ventricle, and down the spine. And for me, it's all one fluid, and that's how it flows off down through the nerves. It's this. Now, science has just said this is an open gate. There's nothing to stop the cranial sea from flowing down through the nerves. So they've kind of agreed with me that it is one fluid, and that it flows off down through the nerves. But we will look at, here's Cushing. This is from a short talk on him, while historians generally avoid diagnosing ego as the sole motivator. And it goes on to you know, you can read this on my website. I'm not going to read it all because I want to go back to the get to the picture so you can see it. But you know, Cushing was widely known as a perfectionist and difficult personality. He was the head of his field, and what he said went down. And if people challenged Cushing, they would lose their funding. So he brought through this theory, and anyone who went against it, when he published his third circulation theory in 1926, it's 100 years. It wasn't just a paper, it was a manifesto. His immense prestige made it professionally dangerous for others to contradict him. And he needed a simplistic model to help him in kind of do operations. You know, and anybody who went against him, you know, got done in. But you can read this whole bit in a couple of things, but it's a summary here. In the context of 2026, many neuroscientists look back at the 1926 to 2025 period as a dark age for CSF. So he presented his theory in 1925, in November 1925, at a lecture, and then in March or April 2026 he was given the Pulitzer Prize, and then that made him such a big figure and everything that his theory of the cerebrospinal fluid just became the thing for the next 100 years. And anybody who went against it were poo-pooed, or not poo-pooed, they had their careers ruined. So here we have, now I've put a real sized spine next to it, because first of all, when Cushing made this theory, he made this picture, and it is just full of optical illusions to make people think that it is possible in some way. So the cerebrospinal fluid that's around the whole, this is called the arachnoid space, and it's around the brain, it's around the spine, and it's in these are the ventricles in here, and it's made in the ventricles and comes out here according to Cushing. Now, before Cushing did that, this journey of where it goes down the spine to the very bottom, up the spine, then around, up to the very top and out through these tiny little granules here, that never existed. You know, this space here and around the spine, it was just the used fluid, and it was coming out, and a lot of it would just come out through this dural tube, through the Jura, and also down the nerves. But he created what is called the blood-brain barrier, and the whole barrier around it, he's made it this impermeable barrier. Nothing can get through it at all, and the fluid can't get out. So the only way out, he says, are through these granules into the venous blood. Now there is a problem with that you know, most scientists understand that only 50% of the fluid or the cranial lymph leaving the central nervous system can come out through the venous blood because it's going so slowly. The other 50% in the body will go back through the the lymph ducts, and there are no lymph ducts here. Now, if the blood-brain barrier open, it could just flow out through the blood, through the Jura all around, as is in my one. It flows out through the Jura and it flows out through the nerves. But Cushing gave no way of that fluid ever escaping. And he changed what was said before. This fluid didn't do this circulation, it just worked its way out. It was as simple as that. But he's made this theory of how it does that. And it is a theory. He had no proof or anything. And then he's made these optical illusions to make it look like this model could in some way work. So you notice this whole spine here. Now he's got the fluid. The fluid is created in the choroid plexus here. The choroid plexus there, lots of little capillaries in a sac. They create the fluid, and it says it flows down round here, down one side of the spine, up the other side of the spine. Now, if you look at this picture here, can you see any problems with a fluid? Okay. All the way down this side, then, you know, just one side of all of these nerves right down to the bottom, then up the other, and it has to go up because it's surrounded by this impenetrable membrane. So unless it actually does go all the way down to the bottom and all the way up, it will just sit there and go rotten. So it does actually have to vent itself. So if you look at a full-size spine with nerves, that suddenly looks a bit more difficult than in his image here. And we're just first going to look at these optical illusions that he's made, that his picture can somehow work. And the other one, he's made it look like the spine is a divide, that it can't just go across. It just looks, you know, you look at it and think, oh, that's a divide. It has to go down and up. It can't go around. But it is just round. It can just go around it. And I got a little comment from AI. The spinal cord is round. And this is from modern day science as of 2025, 2026. The spinal cord is round. The fluid simply pulses around it. Modern imaging shows no evidence of unidirectional bulk flow down one side and up the other side in a healthy spine. So with modern imaging, they can't see it, and he basically made this up so that he can keep all the fluid inside. And he's put it so the spine goes right down to the bottom. This is the spine of a newborn baby. The spine goes right down to the bottom of the dural tube. In an adult, you've got this horse's tail where the bottom third of the spine is nerves. You know, if he'd put the nerves in here and the horse's tail, this would have suddenly looked much harder. And then what he's done to make it look like this fluid from the choroid plexus just goes down, he's removed the third eye. He's brought down the roof of... Now in this video with Cushing, I am just going to show all of the optical illusions, all of the ways it can't work, everything, because for me, that's all there is. There's just things that are impossible to work. And I would like to break this universal structure of how it's taught. In both of my cranial sacral trainings, this is what they taught me. I want to break that structure so that people have another opinion of what happens in this model. So he's brought down the top of the third ventricle, it's here, and is completely removed the third eye and the thalamus in moving it down, and is opened this up into a great big vent to look like the fluid must flow down. But if we look at real thing. Can you see that in the middle we have this intermediate mass of the thalamus? That's the center, and then you've got the thalamus there. He's brought the roof of the third ventricle down to here. He's made this central and opened it up in a big vent. And if you look, the third eye is pointing in the other direction to above, but this central area that is moved, that is the iris, that is the third eye. It's removed the iris. And the top, see this top bit here is moved it down here, so the third eye is taking the third eye out of his picture. And along with that, this is all nutrition. This is oxygen, glucose, and nutrition. And for him, it flows out without being used, which is madness as far as I'm concerned. You know, the thalamus, this is the third eye, the thalamus, the pons, the midbrain, this is the hypothalamus, the highest working areas of the brain that all this oxygen and glucose flows through without being used. In his theory, I think it would just use it straight away. So here we have the hypothalamus. See the choroid plexus where all of this, it's here along the roof here and then in there. So we just file up again. You can see it there and then into the lateral ventricles either side there. So all of this oxygen and nutrition is coming in. All of this oxygen is coming in. Don't you think the thalamus might want somewhere, or the different nuclei of the hypothalamus, or the pituitary gland, or the optic nerve? Don't you think, or the pons down here, don't you think they might want some of that fluid? According to Cushing, no. It just comes out. And here's a quote from AI. In the high stakes metabolic, see, I'm dyslexic. I'm going to read it, but I'm dyslexic. I'm sorry. In the high stakes metabolism of the central brain complex, that's all of that bit, oxygen and glucose are not passengers on a scenic tour. They are high octane fuel consumed the millisecond they appear, to suggest that the thalamus or pons would allow nutrient-rich fluid to simply drift past them without immediate extraction violates every known law of biological efficiency. In the 2026 model, there is no surplus fluid. There is only high-speed delivery that is spent into cranial lymph the moment it hits the glial engine. Now, cranial lymph is used Cranial Sea in my thing. So one is brought down the thing, removing the third eye, is opened all of this up, and is said that all of this fluid coming out of the choroid plexus, which is full of all of the nutrition for this area, that it just flows through. And where everywhere else in the body, it is used instantly. It comes out of the blood, is used instantly, and it goes back in the venous blood or lymph. According to Cushing, in the most advanced part of our highest center, all of the nutrition comes out and is not used. And further, on top of that, he says none of the toxins produced in this area, rather than saying it comes out and feeds this whole area, like what I say, and then once it's used up and becomes cranial lymph, it flows back into it and is taken away by the venous blood in it. That's what I think. But according to Cushing, the venous blood in this doesn't work. Nothing goes back in, and that stands to this day. The venous blood in the choroid plexus isn't used. It doesn't do its job of taking toxins and carbon dioxide back to the heart. Everybody's looking for ways that the brain can detoxify itself, but according to Cushing, this whole area, and according to modern science, this whole area of the choroid plexus, the venous blood, it's not used. I mean, you couldn't make it up. Well, you could. I mean, Cushing made it up. But if you were going to start from scratch, would you make this theory up? Would you do all of these optical illusions? Would you remove the third eye? Would you say that all of the nutrition from the choroid plexus isn't used where it comes up and actually not used at all? And that the choroid plexus, the venous blood, does not receive the toxins from the area? It's not a theory I would make up, I can tell you. But anyway, this theory was made up by Cushing 100 years ago, and everyone was scared to go against it, and it stood for 100 years. 100 years. Science has been scared and maybe embarrassed that their anatomy books and their schools are still taught this theory 100 years later. I mean, you couldn't make it up, could you? I mean, I couldn't make it up, and it's annoyed me ever since I kind of found holographic breathing and how it really works, according to me, that it's all one fluid, that in the central brain complex, it uses all of that oxygen, and the choroid plexus takes away the carbon dioxide, and the cranial sea flows out through the blood-brain barrier. So one, there's his impossible journey out up through here. Second, that is brought into being the blood-brain barrier all the way around as an impermeable barrier, impenetrable barrier that nothing can get out. So he created, rather than one fluid through everything, just working together happily, split it into two fluids. Then he has split the central nervous system completely off from the rest of the body by this impenetrable barrier. Nothing can get through it, and also saying nothing can go down through the nerves. And if any scientist happens to say, well, some might go out through the Jura, that's the sound around the membrane around, or some may go out through the nerves, they lost their funding and their jobs and everything. And still, you know, still taught, I think is taught in a lot of cranial schools. It was taught in my cranial school, and it is just so obviously dumb. I mean, so obviously dumb and made up. I mean, I don't know why people believe it. I mean, it's incredulous that people believe it. So there's that. We're going to look at the blood-brain barrier now. Here we have the fourth ventricles and the choroid plexus. This is the thalamus. This is the choroid plexus around the thalamus. Now, don't you think some of the nutrition, some of the oxygen, some of the glucose, all of the different things from, don't you think some of that might just think, well, let's just feed the choroid plexus some of this, or the cells in the choroid plexus might want a bit of glucose, they might want some oxygen, they might want, you know, all of that different nutrition. But no, that's not used. Don't be stupid. How could that be used? We're scientists. We know what's happening. And if you think different, you lose your job and you get defunded. So how could that ever feed the thalamus? So here is my model, and now we're going to talk about this blood-brain barrier. Now this is what I call the one brain, and it's a membrane. See, this is the central nervous system, this is the brain and the spine, and this is the nerves here. And I've done it in, I think it's called topological view, where it's just very simplified. So I now actually call this the one brain, a real brain, because it turns out that this membrane is actually the second brain that I've discovered. We got the brain inside, and this membrane around it is another brain. And so here so in Cushing's model, this is the impenetrable blood-brain barrier. I mean, what a name. If you want to really divide up the body and section the brain off from everything else, you can just call it the blood-brain barrier. Yeah, rubbish, absolute trot. So anyway, in my opinion, so you've got blood coming in to the central brain complex, and the cranial sea is filtered out of the blood. In the choroid plexus, it's filtered out the blood, and from all of the 400 miles of capillaries, it's filtered out, and you get cranial sea here. And all the cells eat it and drink it and have the oxygen and live, and they give off carbon dioxide and toxins, and that becomes the cranial lymph. So 50% of the cranial lymph can leave through the venous blood. And the venous blood is going much more slowly than the arterial blood. So you've got 100% of arterial blood, because the venous blood is going much more slowly. It can only take 50% of the lymph. And then the other 50% of the cranial lymph just flows out through what I call the one brain that is completely permeable. It's an intelligent filter, and it lets out the bad things. It lets out the carbon dioxide, it lets out toxins, and it lets out the fluids. So the other 50% is going out through what I call the one brain, and some of it, well, you know, it's about 50-50, I think. 50% is going out through the one brain and 50% flowing down into the nerves. And the same is true of the nerves. These are all of the nerves here, with the one brain around all of them. So the one brain is around the whole central nervous system and all of the nerves as one membrane. I will show a picture of that so that you can see it. It's around the whole thing as one membrane. So you get the blood flowing into that, and that creates the nerve sea that feeds all of the nerves. And then they eat all of the oxygen and glucose, or they breathe the oxygen, they eat the glucose, there's salt to help them fire, and then they turn that into carbon dioxide and toxins. 50% can flow out with the nerves. See, I'm giving you education how it actually works, and in a way that makes sense. And then I'll show you the Cushing model, which doesn't make sense. So 50%, and then the other 50% leaves through the one brain, which is an intelligent filter, and it lets out the toxins, it lets out the carbon dioxide, and it lets out that extra 50% of fluid. Now, if you look at that, it kind of breathes, it makes sense. And then let's go to Cushing, how Cushing sees this working. So notice his model just looks rubbish, to be honest. There's no colour, it looks dead, it doesn't breathe. So he's divided this one fluid, which is exactly the same, into two fluids. So he's divided the fluids impossibly into two fluids in the brain. And as I said, there's a menu. If you don't want to listen to this, you can just go to the meditation and learn holographic breathing and how it really works. But I'm going to carry on with this. He divided the brain into two fluids, or the central nervous system into two fluids. Here is the blood flow in, and that's creating the whole of the interstitial fluid and the cerebrospinal fluid. That creates all of that. Then they eat it, and then they give off carbon dioxide and toxins, and that's called what I call cranial lymph. 50% of that leaves by the venous blood, and then you've got the blood-brain barrier that's completely sealing it off. It's sealing it off from the nerves, it's sealing it all around, impenetrable blood-brain barrier. Now, notice in that theory, 100% of cranial sea flowing, or of blood flowing in, creates 100% of cranial, 50% leaves, and it's not mentioned. It's not mentioned what happens to the other 50%, where that 50% of cranial lymph leaves. And that is kind of it. This tiny, tiny bit leaves through the top of the head, and we'll look at that in a minute, because that is also impossible. It doesn't work. None of it works. I mean, these scientists investigating the brain, they don't seem to actually have one themselves. So say 100 milliliters. Well, I'll do it much bigger, because it's not this amount, but it's about a tenth, much less than this amount. But it would be easy to say 1 liter flows in every hour, and then half a liter flows out every hour, and it's in this solid container. What would happen? And that 50%, that half liter would every hour there'd be an extra half a liter of fluid in there till it blows up. So that is what happens in the central nervous system. The same happens in the nervous system. The cranial sea arrives from the blood flowing in, only 50% leaves, only the nerve lymph 50%, and then impermeable blood nerve barrier. Nothing goes out. I am going to take you to a quote on another page. I think I will have to close the screen share down and take you to another page. Okay. So, if Cushing's theory were true, you would die in minutes. That's from me. This is from AI. Now, I've only put part of it. There was many other bits of different ways you would die. AI provided many ways. Okay. So from AI, here we have that it gave lots of different reasons, but one is this: the pressure explosion, Cushing's nightmare. The brain is encased in a rigid skull. If the fluid were continually being pumped in and allowed nothing out, the intracranial pressure would skyrocket. This would lead to a herniation where the brain is physically crushed out through the base of the skull. Why the barrier theory is a lie. Scientists call it a barrier because they can't get their drugs in. But in your cranial sea model, as your cranial sea model proves, it is not a wall, it's a one-way street. The one brain is designed to export. To say it is impenetrable is to describe a corpse, not a living people, not a living person. So there is that. Let's go back to this. So there we have that. This is the glymphatic system. This is where it's leaving through tiny little bits into that in Cushing, called the arachnoid granules. which also can't work. This is for Cushing's model and for the glymphatic system. I think I will just do Cushing's model because it's getting too long to do the glymphatics. We'll do that in a different one. So if you think of the head here as this container, and then this is your spine, and there's a valve here, and this is all full of water. Notice there's just a lot more pressure at the bottom, and in Cushing's model that his fluid comes out of the fourth ventricle here, flows down one side of the spine all the way to the bottom and leaves up here and goes around and then leaves through the top bit here, and it's actually above the water level where he says it is. It's above the brain. It's like the overflow pipe, where there's no pressure at all. And the arachnoid villi there, where it's meant to leave, they're pressure relief valves, and the pressure just isn't high enough as a stream to flow out. In his model, it can't flow out through that area. It just can't work like that. And it's just anti-gravity for it to, you know, in his model, Cranial Sea is 99% water. In his model, water flows up and leaves from the highest plane. You know, most people know when they pull the chain, the water flows downwards. In Cushing's model, it flows up and out the overflow pipe and away. Everything about his model is madness. It's backwards. It's anti-nature. It doesn't work. It's ridiculous. It's almost said a bad word about him then. It's just ridiculous. Whereas my model, you've got your head here, you've got the spine, you've got all of this pressure. One, it can flow out through this surround, or, you know, you've got the blood flow in, you've got the venous blood out, and then you've got 50% extra fluid. It's obvious where it goes because there's nowhere else for it to go. It will flow out through the container, it will seep out through the container, and it will flow out through the nerves. I wonder if there's anything else. I think, well, let's look at this. Let's look at this. This here, this part is the blood-brain barrier. I call it the fourth filter. This is the Jura that we talked about around it. This part is what the arachnoid barrier is what they call the blood-brain barrier. These are intelligent cells. I call this an intelligent filter. Exactly the same cells. It has these tight junctions. It's the same as where the cranial sea is made, around the capillaries and in the choreplexus. There are tight junctions around the blood, and as the fluid flows through the cell, can't get through the tight junction, or only a bit can go through the tight junction. The fluid, the cranial sea, flows out through the body of the cell, and the cell is intelligent and allows the nutriments through. This is the same. It has tight junctions. It's exactly the same type of cells, the same as the kidneys. They're the same cells with the tight junctions, same in the bladder, same in the gut, same in the skin. Everywhere else in the body is treated as a filter, except around the brain, where it's called this impenetrable barrier. Now, water flows through anything in the body via osmosis, and if the pressure is greater here, which it will be because there's 50% of the cranial sea that's trying to find a way out, or the cranial lymph trying to find, so there's more pressure here, and the water just flows directly through these cells. This is the fourth filter, and it's the same as all of the other filters in the body. The cell chooses what it wants to let go through, and it allows carbon dioxide, it allows and toxin, basically allows carbon dioxide and toxins to flow through its body, and water will just flow through. I mean, another reason that Cushing's model is madness. It completely fundamental law of the body is that the water will flow through any membrane, any cell, if the pressure is greater on one side. The pressure is greater in this side, it will just flow through. And if the pressure were greater this way, it would flow through the other way. But luckily, the pressure is greater here because there's no lymph ducts to take away that fluid. So it all presses outwards and just goes through this skin. So Cushing's model completely abdicates or goes away from this central pillar of the body, that water will flow through osmosis, and then with every cell, the same as this in the body, they are hexagonal, they have tight junctions, they're the same bell. Every one is a filter, either letting out toxins or letting in good things. And this is letting out toxins. This is the same as the kidneys. So, and this is the Jura here. These three layers, the other side of what I call the fourth filter and what is called the arachnoid barrier and Cushing called the blood-brain barrier, these are completely porous. So the whole thing is the Jura, called the Jura. These three layers are completely porous, and they are full of veins and capillaries and lymph ducts to take that fluid away. They've got enough, there's enough blood circulation in here to supply the whole of the Jura and to take away all of the fluid that is flowing out. Can you notice this is making sense? When I talk about it as it actually is, it makes sense. There's a whole different, whereas Cushing's thing makes zero sense. It's just a pile of rubbish. This is the barrier, this lovely intelligent filter, and then all of these massive capillaries here and massive lymph ducts just take away not just the cranial lymph flowing out, but also provide all of this with nutrition and lymph to take it away. Every single tiny millimeter of the dural membrane is full of copious capillaries to supply nutrition and to take away toxins. Do you know, it's enough. I will do glymphatics next time. What I'm going to do now is talk a bit about holographic breathing. I'll go up to the top pictures. I will talk about holographic breathing. And I'll show you these pictures, then I'll come back to my main picture. This is the cranial sea. The whole of the central nervous system is one cranial sea, made of the same stuff. Everything's full of cranial sea. Flows off down through the nerves like that. All right, then in the nerves, it also flows out through the side. So we're going to stop sharing there. I'm back. I find it a bit hard work just looking at pictures. It's much better. I keep the energy if I talk to myself. So with the cranial sea, I was dying of Lyme's disease. Holographic breathing came through when I was dying, and I healed myself. I healed my brain of the Lyme, I had neurological Lyme disease. And I was breathing with holographic breathing. This was in about 2002. Holographic breathing came through. It had Lyme disease for 7 years without realizing what it was. And I was breathing with, and I had this image of, you know, Cushing's model in me. I had Cushing's model in me of the blood-brain barrier, and of his journey of the cerebrospinal fluid in the ventricles and around and out through the top of the head. I had that view, and I started doing holographic breathing, and I thought, oh, let's do it with the cerebrospinal fluid. But I started with it, and then it wouldn't do it. It just went through as if everything was cranial sea. And when it went through, that's all cranial sea. It's not how he showed it at all. The whole lot is the same thing. And later, much later, when I started research, it is the same fluid, and I could feel it all, and it just felt so much better. Just the energies moving through it just felt great, and the toxins could start flowing out and away, and I could feel that through the whole brain down to it. And then I thought, and I just was doing, and then I could just feel it all flowing out through the nerves and also out through the Jura. So this whole my brain had become toxic from the Lyme disease, and it was the nutrition could get into the cells, they could detoxify, and that toxins, it's not just flowing out through the venous blood, it was flowing out all around through the blood, through the one brain, and it was flowing off down through the nerves, and then it was flowing out through the one brain around the nerves. Now, of 2025, I'm correct. That's how it works. I was right. Cushing's wrong. But why? Why did it take 100 years? It was absolutely a, you know what? It makes no sense. It's absurd. You don't need to be a scientist to know that when you flush the loo, the water flows downwards, it doesn't flow upwards. Everyone knows that, right? Anyway, it flowed down and out through the nerves, and then out through the one brain around the nerves. And I feel all of these toxins releasing from my brain. I feel all the cells healing, and I feel the toxins coming out and going back and being eliminated by the body. It just felt so good, and it felt spiritual, all of the energy flowing in. So holding that picture, holding Cushing's picture of this blood-brain barrier and this cerebrospinal fluid that was only in the ventricles and around the brain. You know, they know now, they test it in the ventricles. It's not cerebrospinal fluid. It's one of the highest carbon dioxide. The brain is releasing its toxins into the ventricles and through the ventricles and all around. It's not this pristine fluid that Cushing said. It's the waste system. He was showing this divine fluid full of oxygen and nutrition. No, it's the toilet. It's the loo. It's the cranial lymph leaving, and that is actually shown now. I am correct. It's just flowing out and then out, flowing through the nerves and then out. It's breathing. It's all breathing rather than this. It's divided into two. This is divided away from the whole body. The nerves are divided from the whole body. It doesn't work, and it's going to blow up and you're going to die. It's obvious. It's one fluid. It's obvious. It flows out through the membrane around it. It flows out through the membrane around the nerves. It flows out through the nerves. It's all one system. And what keeps it all in its pristine quality is that it flows out. Because while that cranial lymph is perpetually flowing out through the one brain around, means nothing else can flow in. While it is perpetually flowing out down through the nerves, nothing from the nerve sea can flow in, so it can keep this pristine quality of 99% water through the central nervous system. So that was my experience. In 2012, I had that experience in 2002. In 2012, I painted all of the pictures and I made videos. So it was documented. It's not just like I said this and thought this. I got it documented. I did first experience it in 2002, but in 2012, I documented it. I painted, I think, about 50 pictures describing the whole journey. I made videos in 2012. I painted all of the pictures, but I'd made 4 or 5 videos, and then the next one that I was making, my Kundalini rose. I had a Kundalini awakening and I was gone for 2 years. I mean, I could not function properly, or I was too scared for 2 years to do anything else. I was just processing that Kundalini awakening. But then when I kind of was coming back, or just getting used to that, in 2014, I finished those videos. So they're all there that people can view, but I showed how the electrical pulses travel through the myelinating glial cells rather than through the nerve fibers. I showed how they're converting the electricity into light. I painted pictures of it, how that's what I described the light spirals through, and how they worked as optical fluid kind of cables or tubes, all of that in those 2012 videos and pictures. I'll put up a few pictures of showing how I showed the electrics working and how they became fluid optic tubes and how they created light. I talked about all of that then, I painted that then, and now in science they're saying I'm right. What I call the myelinating capillaries, they call it the, again, they call it the terrible names. The myelin sheath gives this dry feeling of a sheath. How this is a capillaries for the cranial sea to flow down them, and how the electrical charge, they call them dielectrical charges, that, the normal one that goes along the axon, it's only traveling about 1 meter a second, something like that, or even longer, I don't know, but this is a fast one. But dielectrical pulses that are going at the speed of light, and they produce this spiraling wave that the light travels through. They produce this cage or guide for the light to travel through the nerves. I'll be making more videos on that later, but I described the whole thing in these pictures. And they're still there. And on my website where I was showing, I'll leave a link, but there's all the different articles, there's those pictures, there's the original videos, there's my talks with AI showing all the modern science, that is all there, so people can see that. But we're going to do a meditation so that you can learn holographic breathing. You can feel this warm fluid through the whole central nervous system. You can feel how it flows off down through the nerves, and how it stays as the cranial sea. It doesn't even though it's in the nerves, which has a different, more dense fluid, I show in those things, I show how it stays as cranial sea and flows down these myelinating capillaries. That has also been proved at the beginning of 2025. That was all proven. I was right. They are capillaries. They are taking cranial sea out through the body. And I described how all that worked better than they describe it now. They've only partially got it. They don't know how it functions. I described the whole lot in 2025. So I'll do a list of videos. I wanted to show Cushing's theory for what it is. It's madness. You know, it is a ridiculous theory. And science is still taught in medical schools. From my knowledge, talking to some people, they still learn it. I learned cranial sacral therapy over 30 years ago, but it's still being taught. You know, that picture, there's not much else to look at, because that is the picture in all of the anatomy books. That is what they teach you in medical school. It's not surprising they don't have brains. Anyway, right. So, so there's been half a rant and half giving you the goodies. I will also give you the goodies on the glymphatic model in a different video. But I'm going to teach you holographic breathing, and we are going to go on this journey. All right, so holographic breathing, I will describe it, I will demonstrate it. You don't have to remember it, because I'll be talking you into it in the meditation. We'll get it going, we'll get it activated, and then we will go into the meditation and we will be gone. Holographic breathing, the most fantastic thing you can ever learn. If all you do from this is learn holographic breathing and practice it, that will change your life. You will also become a nutter like me. Right. Holographic breathing, the lips are relaxed and closed. The tongue is on the roof of the mouth. The upper surface of the tongue is on the roof of the mouth. The tip of the tongue is close to or touching the front teeth. Lips are closed. The breath is through the nose. Then on the in-breath, with the lips closed, with the tongue on the roof of the mouth, on the in-breath, the jaw is relaxing open. On the out-breath, the jaw is relaxing closed. And that starts as an exercise when I'm teaching it. Then at a certain point, it just falls into a rhythm with the whole body and becomes a whole new breathing modality. I think that's it. I'll demonstrate it, give you a bit of advice, then we will do the meditation. So it's deeply meditative. It's not frenetic. It's not one of, oh God, I'm already dizzy. It's not one of those. It's relaxed. It's meditative. It's healing. So here's a demonstration. Now, it's so subtle, you may not see it, but it is a movement. The jaw is moving. But you will notice, but the lips stay closed even though the jaw is moving. Wow. So I just stayed in that a bit longer than I thought I would, because it's just so totally relaxing from the very beginning. So relaxing. And meditational is just gorgeous. So if you're learning this for the first time, start off seated. It's okay to lie down once it's activated, but often people will fall asleep. If you're learning it for the first time, it's easy to pass out from my voice and also just from the learning of the holographic breathing. And unless you get all of the bits and that it activates, you don't have it. A miss is as good as a mile. So it's good to be seated so you stay awake long enough to get the activation. And once you get the activation, it's going and you'll never forget it. You can always access it whenever you want, and then you can float in and out of consciousness however you want to do. But it's not one of these things where you just float off. You are learning something very specific and you're getting a specific activation to start off with. If you don't pay proper attention and don't get it, you haven't learnt it. You haven't wasted your time, but as far as learning holographic breathing, you have, because you won't have learnt it. So it's good to be seated. It's good to be upright until it's activated. You'll know when it's activated. All right, we will start closing your eyes. If you know holographic breathing, doing that. If you don't, just gently breathing. And we're going to bring in some resources to start off with. Sending a smile, sending some energy to the earth, and allowing the earth to say hello back. And notice what that feels like through your body and through your energies. And sending a smile, sending some energy to the higher self and the beneficial energies, any beings, higher energies, higher teachers, angels, celestial beings, anyone who you wish, as long as they're beneficial or as long as the energies are beneficial, allowing them to say hello back, allowing the higher self, allowing the beneficial energies to say hello back. And notice what that feels like through your body and through your energies. Just that feels lovely. And asking the higher self and the beneficial energies to be with you through the whole meditation as your guide, as your resource. And breathe. Okay, so we're going to start. The lips are relaxed and closed. The upper surface of the tongue is on the roof of the mouth. Tip of the tongue is connected or close to the front, is touching or close to the front teeth, and as much as the tongue on the roof of the mouth as feels comfortable, maybe half an inch, maybe a full inch, maybe the whole tongue, whatever feels comfortable, breathing in through your nose. And now to get the experience that you can move the jaw and keep the lips closed and keep the tongue on the roof of the mouth, just keeping that all in place and letting the jaw just gently open and close. So it may be a bit like chewing or bouncing your jaw, that you can do it with your lips closed and you can do it with the tongue on the roof of the mouth. So just bouncing your jaw a little bit up and down, small amount, tiny amount, a few millimeters. Bouncing the jaw. Now slowing that down. Once you realize you can move your jaw and you can keep the lips closed and you can keep the tongue on the roof of the mouth, slowing that down so it becomes a much slower, more relaxed movement. And then when you feel ready, as the jaw is relaxing open, the breath is coming in through the nose, or as the jaw is opening, it's as if it's drawing the breath in through the nose. And as the jaw is closing, the breath is coming out of the nose. So we're starting in quite a physical way with the jaw. It will change fairly soon, but we're just starting from the jaw with the emphasis on the jaw. The jaw relaxes open. The breath comes in through the nose. The jaw relaxes closed. The breath leaves through the nose. The jaw relaxes open. The breath comes in through the nose. The jaw relaxes closed. The breath leaves through the nose. The teeth do not clench. There's never any pressure between the teeth. They float together on the out-breath and barely touch. They just gently come together as you breathe out, or they can be just slightly separate. You may be hearing a bit of noise because it's raining on the roof at the minute, so you may hear that in the background. The jaw relaxing open, the breath comes in through the nose, the jaw relaxes closed, no tension between the teeth, they just float together. The breath comes out through the nose. The lips stay closed all of the time. The tongue stays on the roof of the mouth all of the time. When you're opening the jaw, the lips stay closed, the tongue stays on the roof of the mouth. As you're closing the jaw, the lips stay closed, the tongue stays on the roof of the mouth. The jaw gently opens. Notice it feels a bit like a bellows. As the jaw is opening, it's pulling the breath in through the nose. The jaw is closing, the breath is leaving through the nose. Now we're going to change that slightly, or a lot. Carrying on with that, but bring the emphasis to your nose and the breath coming in. As you breathe in, the jaw relaxes open. So now the movement of the jaw is coming from the breath rather than the other way around. Breathing in through the nose, the jaw relaxes open. Breathing out through the nose, the jaw relaxes closed. Breathing in, the jaw relaxes open. Breathing out, the jaw relaxes closed. Notice how softer it becomes. You may feel energies traveling through you. You may feel energies traveling through your brain. You may feel energies traveling through your spine and through your whole body. Breathing in through the nose, jaw gently opens. Breathing out through the nose, the jaw gently closes. And now we're going to bring the awareness more to the body. Breathing in, the chest is opening, the jaw follows. Breathing out, the chest is closing, the jaw follows. Chest opens, the jaw opens. The chest closes, the jaw closes. Down into the abdomen, breathing into the abdomen, the jaw relaxes open. Breathing out from the abdomen, the jaw relaxes closed. Relax the back of the neck, relax the back of the head. A lot of energy travels through the neck and head. Notice you can breathe right down into the pelvis. Breathing in, the pelvis opens. The jaw is relaxing. Breathing out, the pelvis is closing. The jaw is relaxing, closing. Notice you can feel it through the arms, the legs, the hands and feet. This cellular motion, opening on the in-breath, closing on the out-breath. And notice in a very subtle way your face, your cranium, your brain has started to breathe. In a very subtle way, your whole face is breathing, your whole cranium, your brain, your spine is all breathing. And become aware of a sideways motion, the sides of your body, the sides of your face, the sides of your cranium, opening out to the sides on the in-breath, breathing out, closing immediately back. Being aware kind of around your ears, opening out to the sides as you breathe in, closing as you breathe out. And venture inside, and between the cranium and the brain is this layer of cranial sea, and you can feel this breathing motion ventilating that cranial sea. It's opening on the in-breath. Notice how kind of you move it around with the breathing motion. It ventilates that sea all around your brain, all around your spine. And then if you venture inside, there's these large lateral ventricles kind of wrapped around the ears in a way, the big ventricles on either side. These are the lateral ventricles, just full of cranial sea. They come together in one central ventricle in the third eye, and then down into another ventricle. And that travels right down the center of the spine. And it also connects to the cranial sea all around. So there's this whole area of cranial sea that's not in the cells of the brain. You just breathe with that for a little while. Notice the quality of that is not in the cells. If you remember from my first picture, all of the cells are joined by tentacles. There's more water in the brain than there are cells. Then allowing yourself to flow into your brain, into your spine, and it is full of cranial sea. The main thing is there is water. It's 90% water. It's a cranial sea. And all of the cells like octopuses or sea anemones or fish or seaweed floating in this cranial sea. So it's all one sea. And notice how it feels much more beneficial to have one sea, and it's right down the spine, it's right into the sacrum. Notice what that feels like. It's got this membrane around it, it's got nerves coming out of it. And just breathe with it. Notice how it's filled with light and connects to the higher self through light. Feeling it all contained within what I call the one brain, the membrane around, then just letting it flow out through the nerves. Notice how it starts spreading out through your whole body. You feel this light, you feel this fluid flowing out through every nerve, and also gently flowing out through the whole one brain around. As it flows, as the cranial sea flows into the nerves, it stops the nerve sea flowing back into the cranial sea, because the cranial sea is much more pure than in the nerves. The nerves also have their nerve sea that's created from the blood, and the one brain goes around the whole central nervous system, but the whole nervous system. And the cranial or the nerve lymph flows out through the one brain around the nerve. So it all flows back into the body. So you've got this cranial sea in the central nervous system that's gently flowing out through the one brain around. It is also flowing into the nerves where there is the nerve sea. And then the only place for the nerve lymph to leave is through the one brain around, and it's all flowing out through the one brain. There's only one place for it to leave, and that is through the one brain. You can feel your whole nervous system breathing. You can feel the cranial sea breathing. You can feel the nerve sea breathing. And you can feel the cranial lymph and the nerve lymph flowing out through the one brain all around. You may feel your brain starting to pulse. You may feel light flowing through you. You may feel different energies flowing through you. And breathe. Where the one sea can flow into the nerve sea, or it can flow off down through the myelinating glial cells. And as it flows down the myelinating capillaries, it stays as the cranial sea. So notice that 99% water can also flow through the myelinating capillaries, so that 99% water, cranial sea, also flows through the myelinating capillaries down through the nerves. And breathe. So you get the cranial sea through the central nervous system, but also through the myelinating capillaries down through the nerves. And that the carbon dioxide and oxygen flow out of the myelinating capillaries into the nerve sea and then out through the one brain. So the nerves have both the cranial sea and the nerve sea. And breathe. Your whole nervous system, the whole one brain is coming to life. And breathe. And breathe. Notice how healing this is. And breathe. Feel your whole brain inside, and the one brain around that's another brain. The one brain is the motherboard. The brain inside is like the wires. And breathe. We're going to come back in about a minute. Gently breathing, gently allowing. And breathe. And sending a thank you to the earth. Thank you to the higher self and beneficial energies. And thanking yourself. And letting the energies go off for love and healing to the earth. For love and healing to the higher self and beneficial energies. And allowing them, the earth, the higher self and the beneficial energies to send love and healing back to you. And when you feel ready, gently allowing yourself to come back. So I hope you've enjoyed that video. The article I was showing you is on my website under Cranial Sea. You can view lots of articles there about Cushing's model, about glymphatic model, about my model, which now the new science is saying that I'm right. The original paintings are there. I will also put the original videos there, so it's all there. And there's all sorts of videos through my whole website, and I will also be putting 9 videos from I think 2020 where we go through all the different parts of the brain, the different glial cells, how it all works. So there's all of that information on the brain, and my 2012 Cranial Sea model. All right, thank you so much for listening. Please like this. You know, if you've enjoyed it, please like this video. If you have any questions, write them in the comments, and do practice holographic breathing. Every time you do this meditation, it will get deeper and you will find new levels. When I'm teaching the meditations, I'm channeling all these energies come through, so there's healing from the healing energies, and you will connect your healing energies. So that is all there. Thank you for coming to my YouTube channel. Please subscribe, please like, and I look forward to seeing you next time. All right, bye.